Hello everybody. This is Christiana Witt, the founder of Soul Soothing Co. And this episode is brought to you by us, where we supply women founders with generous and gorgeous web presence, an all-in-one business platform, and AI-enhanced systems so that you can restore your desire for spaciousness, flow, and creative freedom. So if you are tired of being a woman entrepreneur, is build a business that works but feels like the business is running you, then you can visit us at Soul Soothing Co., book a quick chat, or email us at hello@soulsoothingco.com. And now on to our guest. Join us for an exciting interview with the award-winning leadership expert and culture pioneer, Moe Carrick, as she tackles the big questions about what it really takes to make work be good for people and for business. Whether you are a seasoned leader or just really care deeply about the future of work, Moe hopefully helps us rethink what work can be.
Thank you, Christiana. So lovely to be here with you today.
Yeah. So we chatted a little bit before, Mo, and so we got, the small women entrepreneur market. You tend to go, you have larger teams, larger companies. You're also launching a membership site for businesses that are, let's say, up to 100 team members. So it seems really clear that teams was a topic that we both share. And then of course we and I'm sure this is how I got to know you over LinkedIn, but I forgot about our love for horses. And I can't help, even when I read your intro, to think teams are a lot like horses, right? Like a horse herd. We all want to feel safe. We all want to know that I am because we are, right? There's a sense of belonging. There is a place. I want to know where I belong in the organization. I want to know I can do my job well and that I do it well and I have the protection of everybody else. I have everybody's back, right? So I had to, like, all of these thoughts were coming through my mind just reading your intro. So I thought it might be really fun for us to talk about today and helpful for our listeners in regards to the challenges and the opportunities to build remote teams. Because for our smaller business owners, that's, very likely a reality. Even if you had a brick and mortar business, we would still recommend that you go hire somebody in Africa, in the Philippines, wherever it is, to support your back office. And then you probably see a lot of hybrid solutions also, right? So tell me a little bit more about what you see and what you feel like is the challenge, the unique challenge of remote teams.
Yeah, thank you so much. And I love your connection to the horses, right? Because it is about connectedness. And as human beings, we are hardwired, actually, just like horses, to live in a herd. We have a primal human need for connectedness. And when we don't get that need met, we suffer in a wide variety of ways. And we're living right now through a global loneliness epidemic and a very meta political and economic period of unrest. And so there's a lot of things happening that are enhancing disconnection. And um, and hybrid work is one of them. And I think you're right on, Prashana. It's related to it really impacts all. It impacts the small business, like the ones both you and I are running, as well as medium and large and even mega organizations who have had a huge percentage of their workforce post COVID-19 be remote and be hybrid. And we're seeing some I think in some ways we're seeing some backlash now where companies are requiring people to be back to the office. Sometimes it's working, sometimes it's not. And we've been seeing some very interesting trends around hybrid work. And something that I would underline that you just said is that the need for connectedness, the need to feel seen and heard. Alison Pugh, who wrote a book that came out last year called The Last Human Job, she
Oh,
describes
I gotta write this down. The last, oh, just the title. Okay.
I know the last few minutes. So she's a sociologist, and her
Yeah.
research was very much, you'll be very interested in it because it was very much around in an age of AI, what jobs, what do jobs require in terms of connectedness? And she uses this term that I love, which is connective labor, which is the effort that it takes to build connectedness because it doesn't happen,
Mm-hmm.
spontaneously. And of course, her research was a lot about jobs that have high connective labor, like the clergy, counseling, leadership,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
therapists, customer service people. And she was speculating and kind of asking the question of what happens to those jobs and also to that whole skill set in the age of AI. And I think it's a really, really good question. And yet, what I'm seeing over and over again is that the even with the new technologies, with AI, with machine learning, and with remote work, that basic human need for connectedness remains the same. It doesn't go anywhere, but it starts to need to be fulfilled in different ways because we don't have proximity. We don't have physical capacity to walk by, to see each other's desktops, to check in on your weekend in a
Mm-hmm.
casual way.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's redefining, I think, a whole lot of patterns, and it's requiring of us, going back to Alison Pugh's language, to invest in some different kinds of connective labor in a virtual environment that we're not used to.
I
Because we,
love that. I love that. So we've been chatting a little bit. I've been in this online world since 2004. That was still with teleconference calls. And
right, right. I
then
was right there with you. Yeah.
and then it started. And then pretty soon I had my first remote VA, and I love the freedom and that agency working from my own quiet space, more or less listening to my energy and my rhythm and not having somebody in the back going, hey, what else do you want me to do? So there are a lot of advantages to remote teams. You and I were talking about in the Philippines, for example, was because of the time difference. For example, I allow my team to work whenever it feels right to them, right? And fit it into their lives, their values. They're so family oriented. If I give them permission to live out that value because I give them flexible time, work hours, that means a lot to them, right? Women, I'm now really discovering the women labor force in Africa. I've now experienced in Ghana and Kenya, and these women are just so ready to show the world how much they know and how powerful they are, and to allow them remotely to be able to do that without a visa, without, like stuff that's unfortunately still really hard for them to come by. Wow, right? That means a
Oh,
lot to them.
absolutely. And I think you're spot on. And I think even in the global West, it's been very transformative. The big uptick in hybrid work and COVID-19 has changed everything for women who are caregivers in particular, but women in across sectors, but especially caregivers, women with children, women who are caring for elders have been truly transformed by more creative options. Like you, I started early. I think my first job that was more remote than not remote was in 2001. And because I took a job already living distant. It was a consulting job, so I was traveling anyway, and so it was fine that I lived where I lived 3 hours from headquarters. But it really didn't take hold. We knew that flexibility was a currency, especially for women, that mattered a lot back in the day. When my first book came out in 2019, we knew that we call it work-life integration. That's actually really all about flexibility. It mattered a lot, especially to women, but in the post COVID-19 reality, all of a sudden it was happening everywhere.
Right.
And we all pivoted. And it was good. And it had some consequences that we've seen around disconnectedness, and I would say around accountability,
Sure.
which is one of the
Productivity,
concerns, yeah, that
right?
people have because you don't have visibility and oversight necessarily into what people are working on. And so it makes it, there's a higher risk, I think, of lack of alignment. We've seen some misuses of remote work where people are doing, multiple jobs. But I think that generally what I hear from clients, and certainly what I experience myself, is that the upside trumps the downside, you know,
Yeah.
um, in terms
And
of remote and
like you
flexible work.
said, is there's a different type of leadership. How do I motivate somebody that I cannot look over the shoulder? And I mean, when first all started, we even had like they had to turn their cameras on to show that they were in front of the computer. That is not humane. So that's not empowering, right? And so when you talk about culture building, I think it's even
Mhm.
almost more important remotely because that is the thing that's gonna make them be want to be productive.
Yes, absolutely. We know that performance increases when we feel seen and heard, when we feel connected. And so if we're really wanting accountability and we have hybrid workers, we need to be really thoughtful about what does that connectedness look like. It's funny that you said that about video because one of the things that I've talked with a lot of clients about is that both video and phone have one of the biggest risks of hybrid work is that we aren't in proximity. So we don't get pheromonal emotional connection. We can't feel each other, which sounds really woo-woo, but it's science,
Sure,
right?
sure.
If we're in the same room and I'm feeling angry, you're going to know I'm angry, even if my body language doesn't say it and I don't say I'm angry. You're just going to feel the vibe. On the video and in the phone, equally, you don't know that. Now, it's possible that on the video, my affect will cue you to say, like, oh, yeah, she's getting red in the face or like something's happening here, but it's much, much more difficult.
Mhm.
In fact, I was really intrigued. In 2015, I heard a wonderful TED talk by a woman named Alex Generous, who was on the Asperger's spectrum.
Ah,
And she was a researcher about pheromone-based keypads on computers for people on the autism and Asperger spectrum to tune into emotion so
tune
that you could
into
actually,
the emotions.
yes, get a vibe like what's happening with that person. Now, I haven't seen that hit the market yet in terms of any practical way, but as a result of that, it requires a lot more of us in terms of dialogue. And again, for me, phone and video are kind of equal. We have to redesign how we talk, what questions we ask, and also, even more importantly, how we listen so that we're getting connectedness without emotionally intelligent pheromonal conversations because it does put pressure on us to linguistically understand. Are
Mhm.
you seeing that in your
Yeah,
spaces?
as I
Yeah.
was listening to you, I was thinking it requires from me, the leader, much more vulnerability.
Mm.
So, you know, because we're not just talking remote, we're also talking different cultures. So
Yes.
we have currently we have two Filipinos, one African lady, two different cultures. I'm in Germany, more or less still American culture, but it's starting to get a little mixed. And I have two
Yeah.
American partners, right? So there's already several continents presented. So culturally, it's different. Some of the team members feel like owners, some feel like employees. So there's a difference,
Yes.
right?
Yes. Yes.
And then we also have more the Filipino Asian culture that's polite but more receptive and passive, which is lovely for
Mhm.
execution, not so lovely when you want some new ideas. And then I
Yeah.
have my African VA, and while I don't have as much experience, I get a sense like the African culture is more outgoing, more
Mm.
outspoken, more vibrant. And so we have to
Yes.
put this all together, and they still have to be heard, felt, and supported. And in a small business, I always try to tell them over and over is you are an entrepreneur. You're
Mm.
not an employee. You're an
Yeah.
intrapreneur. You ask questions, come forth. If something is not working, let us know. Don't wait for the next meeting. And so yes, I have to convey more in language, but I also feel like I have to share much more about my own reality so that they start to understand what it actually means to be a
Yeah.
German running a business, looking from afar, so wealthy and, well off and have it all together. And,
Right.
there's like like my personal assistant somewhere on an island in the Philippines, and I'm not saying that he is, but it would be very easy for him to say, well, she got it all, let her carry the weight.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think it's a wonderful point of view to remember. And that vulnerability, of course, invites vulnerability back,
Yes.
right? Because when we're in a hybrid environment, it is important that we understand the world that our partners, our colleagues are working in, and we truly may not know. I'm remembering I had an EA as well who was in the Philippines, excuse me, and they had a pretty cataclysmic um, eruption event and in his island where he lived, and we were scheduled to have a meeting and we had to cancel the meeting, and then when we talked about it, he was giving me a little bit more detail about what it's like to live where he lives. It's very rural. It's most everybody travels everywhere by boat. And I didn't have any sense of that. I've never been to the place where he's from. And similarly, I remember talking about to him one day, I had to cancel a meeting because we had a huge snowstorm here. And he was very curious, like, what is snow? And so there's a level of connectedness we that really requires curiosity and perspective shifting. And you said a really powerful word, I think, earlier, which is vulnerability. I think that we know that vulnerability is hard at work, despite our knowledge that vulnerability based courage is an emotional intelligence skill that builds team health and is very effective for leaders. We still struggle in businesses today to actually, not only businesses, in education systems, in healthcare systems, to really practice and understand what that looks like, especially when we're trying to work through a conflict or a repair. And so I think that as business owners, especially when we're in smaller businesses or even when we're working in remote environments, in larger businesses, we need to almost always, in my experience, design our touch points with vulnerability in mind so that we're asking opening questions that invite people to show up fully, as their whole selves. And it doesn't have to dominate the meeting, but it can create an initial uptick of vulnerability based sharing so that we see each other as the humans that we
As
are. And, of
humans.
course, that same practice works in non remote settings, but we forget to do it there too. And it becomes even more critical in those remote.
Yeah. Yeah, so we have an all team meeting on Mondays, and we always start off with sharing something that was fun or meaningful over the weekend.
Love
And
it.
it's always super fun to hear. And then what I do, coach can't hang the coat up anytime. And so I'm always in coach mode. I then wrap it up and point out to them the similarities of the experiences.
Mhm. Mhm.
So it's always about other humans,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
whether in Accra, Ghana, um, on my VA, thanks to our salary, was able to start playing tennis. It wasn't about the tennis, it was about her, meeting new people that are also sporty. And then the next one had like a lovely picnic after church in the Philippines. And so when you then point out the similarities, that also seems to creates the herd. It
Totally.
breaks
Well,
down
we use
all the illusions that I'm on this little island in the Philippines, different than Christiana there in Germany.
yes, we feel seen and heard. In my research points to 7 needs that we have from work, and I won't bore you by going through them all
No,
right
this
now,
sounds
but
interesting. Can you list them? I want to
oh
see.
gosh, we'll see if I can remember my
Okay,
own
okay.
framework, right? But generally, they include some of them we've talked about, right? So one is connection, right? Feeling seen and heard. We know that we need to be able to make our lives work, which is about cash and non-cash compensation. We know that we need job satisfaction, like we need to have purpose. We need to understand why what we do matters. We need to be able to have work-life integration, so that flexibility, whether we're carers or don't want a long commute or we can't get a visa or whatever, that all fits in that area. What else do we have? Purpose, connection. Well, we need relationships, which is Actually, that's the same as connection. One of the things that our research pointed to that is less known is our need to be able to. Oh, it just slipped my mind. Um, oh, it'll come back to me.
It'll come back. Actually,
The
I
rest
picked.
of them will come back, but
Oh yeah, it's good. No, this is already really good. This was interesting to pick up for anybody who does want to build a remote team. We had at first, so we used AI and our all-in-one system to semi-automate the virtual assistant search. Usually that's
mm,
a real nightmare. We wanted to hire 5 people and you get bombarded with, resumes of some sort that all look the same, sound the same, etc. So I actually used a pre-programmed AI tool that we, off the shelf LLM, but we pre-programmed it onto
mm,
with the information of our business. And then I said, we want to hire the following roles. Please create me an entire process. It took, I counted 8.5 minutes, all the way from the first little snippet on a job site, all the way to the onboarding process
wow.
and the hiring filtering process. It was 8 steps
Mm,
before the hiring actually occurred. It gave me all the homework for them, the emails. So then I had my partner, who is the automation
wonderful.
expert, isn't that cool?
That's very
Put
cool.
it into our software, and then we had a pipeline. And depending on where I moved them forward, as I got to know them, they got a new email with more homework, et cetera, et cetera. So, long story, from about 190 applicants, I ended up interviewing 28
Mm,
because they either didn't deliver on time, which then my partner had set it up to automatically kick them off,
right,
et cetera,
right.
right?
That's a good
All of that
indicator. Yeah.
matters. It was pretty funny. They all started to respond with AI, using AI to respond to my AI prompts.
Oh,
We called it the war
interesting.
of AIs. And so then I put in,
Interesting.
you had to submit a video, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But
Mm-hmm.
long story, we got 28. They were all awesome, but we came to 5 superstars. And it was a really pleasant experience. And so I
I
asked them
bet.
afterwards what was different about this process. One, they have never in all, and they apply left and right hundreds of times. They've never been
Mm,
sent through a selection funnel.
interesting.
And the right ones said they loved it because they could prove themselves at various points
Yes,
versus
yes,
being in a pool of people and then how do I even express that I'm special?
yes. I
Right?
love that. I love that. Well, it's interesting because the one that I couldn't remember, the need
Mm.
that is really powerful from our research is what we describe as feeling supported taking risks, which is also sometimes described if any of your listeners are familiar with the work of Amy Edmondson as psychological safety.
Right.
So
I
your
was just going to say,
funnel, yeah, so your funnel is also helping people take risks, meaning like here's an opportunity for me to show up fully, to be brave and show them like what I've got. And when that happens, and when we feel supported and when the consequences are not harmful, we are much more likely to innovate, to be creative, and to do hard things. The other thing interesting about your funnel is that the one of the needs that I forgot to mention was our need to learn, right? Our need to learn and grow to be better tomorrow than I was yesterday. So when we think about all those things in the context of the workplace and we add the layer of the virtual, we can really start to see how we can design our meetings, our non-meeting time, our asynchronous connection points, our dialogue to meet those needs in a more vibrant way. Oftentimes, when I see it done well, it's sometimes more effective than when people are in person.
yeah,
Because,
yeah,
right? I
because
mean,
we all have agency, right? We all have, one is a little baby, has other needs than the next one. So for sure. And we have lots of touch points through Slack. I
yeah,
put in my calendar on Monday, I do an inspirational quote. Then we have a very effective meeting, but we start off with what has been meaningful to you over the weekend. Then I encourage everybody to share a special picture of a unique, place, and inevitably we bomb them with our horses, the poor
Right.
VAs.
Totally. I love it though.
And then Wednesdays, I ask them if there's anything I can do for them and where they're at. And if they feel 100% supported to finish their projects by Friday, again, I hope to bring them out of their shell and allow them to make mistakes, to ask questions, to point out that they might not meet the Friday deadline, and here's why. And then I try to get them to work with each other. That took actually quite a bit of warming
Mm,
up because they're very much, okay, I'm gonna go put my head down and do it.
yes.
Instead of reaching out, hey, do you have this and this and this? And it warms my heart when on Slack it starts to, you know, not go over me or one of my partners, but with them each other. And then on Fridays, I ask them, and again, it's every Monday, every Wednesday, every Friday. It doesn't take me long, but it's these touch points that you were talking about. What did you get done? If you're particularly proud of something, share it here. What was more difficult than you thought? What are you gonna do with your weekend? Like, and at first there was just a lot of silence. Now it's like, can I go? When we have the meetings, the hand goes up. I want to share, right? So
Right.
that I think is how you kind of build this culture, but you can't expect your VA to have an entrepreneurial mind when they start. You have to help them build it, and that's remote or not remote, right? In this market, anybody employed or not employed should embrace the self motivated inner self, right?
Yes. And not only may they not have an entrepreneurial mindset, but I would go so far as to say, actually, that in many cases, we have mindsets that we learned in the traditional world of the workplace that are outdated, but that impact how we show up in a hybrid environment, whether it's a small or large business. An example would be deference to authority and a hesitance to contribute my not fully baked ideas. So that leads to, for example, excessive perfectionism. Now, in a remote environment, perfectionism can be real problem because somebody might have a task. Let's say I've delegated a task to somebody remotely, and in my mind, it is something that's worth 3 hours. Like I want them to take
Yes,
3 hours to
many
do it.
times.
Yeah. And then I find out, and this has happened to me too in a run. I find out from an employee, oh, I've been working on this for 22 hours
I wanted to get
and
it just right for you, and you
I
just like,
wanted to get it just right for you. But then by the time they deliver it to me, I've moved on, in my thinking, and I don't even, that no longer is something I'm pursuing. So what we're retraining, I think often in a remote environment, but even in an in-person environment, is we're actually retraining a mindset around who are you to me? Who am I? And who am I to you? And who are you to me? And how are we going to actually fast track? Because I think that's what we're trying to do a lot in a virtual environment is we're needing to fast track connectedness in such a way that we actually increase risk taking, courage, and vulnerability rather than decrease it. Because in a virtual environment, you can hide. You can just put your head down, like you said. I can do my tasks. I can be almost like resigned on station, retired on station, and do the bare minimum. But that doesn't create a healthy team culture. It doesn't create high energy output and excellent results. So it's really on us. And I think some of what we're talking about, Christiana, that's so interesting to me is hybrid work challenges us to be really people centered as leaders. Like
eggs,
we have to really
totally.
be
I,
good,
yeah,
right? We have to
yeah,
really be good at seeing these people, at engaging them, and making them feel part of a team, at building team health where they're connected to each other, not just to us as the hub.
yeah.
And I think we can get away with being slack on some of that in an in-person environment in a way that actually isn't beneficial in that context either.
No. And it's not good for that person either,
No,
right?
no, not at all. not at all.
So especially my listeners, are now used that I can't go one podcast without bringing the horses in because they've been teaching me so much.
I'm with you. Yes.
So but I think I hear this more often than not that people go, "Wow, I'm not a horse person, but I understand." So you said something I think that's really powerful, and is that they brought that, whether it's remote or not, the employee brings old habits or old experiences into the work environment, or even high school or grade school experiences.
Yep,
I get slapped on my
absolutely.
hand for having a good idea or criticizing the teacher. I'm never going to do this again, right? And so in the horse world, as you and I know, everybody thinks that is all like hunky dory for the horses, but most horses are in a state of what we call shutdown, right?
Mm.
Self-protective, little shell around them because they don't feel listened, heard, or seen. They get commanded and they turn into little marionettes. They do what they, trained little puppies, and that's what we, pay millions of dollars for. So my job as a horse trainer was always to defrost their hearts,
I
right?
love that.
To get them from not shut down to curious to courageous to willing and able to make mistakes because they know they didn't get hurt for it, right? This we're just talking to like horses. It's the same as for people.
It's the same.
And
Yeah, it's the
and
same.
what we have to be careful with is when we defrost their hearts, employees and horses, that we don't turn them around into back into an environment where that frozen heart was a really great survival instinct.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah,
So if we have to now, I know that if I had to let my VAs go, I know opened them up.
yeah,
And I don't know if that's going to serve them really, really well in their next environment, right?
yeah,
So I have no intentions of doing so, but I need to be aware that I do that. But
yeah.
when we do this, we all of a sudden see that they are willing to take a risk or willing to make a mistake or say, I know you were guys, you were all asleep on my time. And so I edit this video this way. What do you guys think? It's okay. We can redo it, you know? Offer me something that has not been commanded or demanded by me. And often it's a way better solution than something either one of my partners or I would have come up with,
Right.
right?
Which, yeah, which takes something, a word that I'm going to name because I think it's powerful what you're describing. It takes agency,
Right.
right? I need to feel like I have some agency, which is all about not
Choice, right?
only do I feel accountable, but it's also I feel this is mine. This is
Ah,
mine.
right. I
Now,
own this. Right.
I own this. And it's interesting your horse example, right? Because I agree with you 100%. And the horse that I currently ride is from a ranch in Nebraska. He was a cattle horse. And so all he did was he probably got very little training, got a saddle popped on him, got broke in the old style Western way they did, and then he was out with cows. Well, with me, he lives a very, very different life. And mostly we ride trails here where I live. But one of the things that I've noticed with him is that if he is when he's, as you said, unfrozen, when as he's learned to trust me, he's discerning about the trail he chooses, which is what I want
Of
because where I
course.
ride,
Of
yeah,
course.
right, where I ride is dangerous. And if he's
Right.
going to go down any slope that I point him to, then I'm at risk. So I need him to be like, oh no, that looks unsteady, or that water looks too deep. We can't ford that river, or whatever. And so he's my partner, not just my servant.
Exactly.
And with
Right.
employees, creating a feeling of agency, creating spaces and places and ways that they feel like, oh, this is mine to own. And also, I have room and space to take a risk, to learn, to feel seen. Then they're going to be much more proactive. And I think in a virtual environment, some of that plays out in the ways in which we structure visibility in addition to connectedness. So we need to make sure that we're openly sharing work that is imperfect to lay down that the value is agency, not perfection.
Or
And
or
then,
even say, you know what? You guys said I should be editing this video like this. By the way, I tried that. It costs 8 hours. I know my hourly rate is such, so this video guys cost you this much. I have a better idea. Like,
yes,
oh my God, would you, like just like your horse, like, I don't think we should go down this ravine. I think
right.
we could
Yes,
crisscross over here, you know,
yes,
would
yes.
be much better. But instead, if we don't create that agency and that independence, that ownership of a project, we're just going to go, well, I just took 24 hours to give you a 5-minute video that's going to have a 10-minute lifespan on Facebook.
Right. Right. And it's not worth it because I've thought this through in my mind. And so it's interesting, right? Because in order to get to that level, we do have to be doing some things really proactively in a virtual environment. And I was reminded of a moment that happened to me when I had to get creative. So I have a chief of staff who's remote. He's in Canada, I'm here. And we were meeting. Typically, we would meet once a week on Zoom for about an hour and a half. There's a lot to go over. And what I noticed over time was that the gap was too big in between, and things could easily like veer down a path. This is an employee who doesn't who has plenty of creativity and autonomy, but isn't me and doesn't have visibility into the entrepreneurial directions that I'm going. So I decided to do an experiment. I said, hey, what would it be like if we had a daily? We had a daily Zoom where instead of 90 minutes, we meet for 20 to 30 minutes. And if we need a deeper work session, we can schedule it. That simple change has emancipated a bunch of wonderful work between us because
Mm,
he
mm.
can see my pivots more quickly. Sometimes he's actually saying, hang on, Mo, yesterday we were going this direction. Do you
Don't
really want to go a different
stay on
direction, Mo?
trail, woman.
Exactly. Which is great because I don't notice. I'm an entrepreneur. So I don't notice when I'm pivoting 180 degrees sometimes because I'm wanting to start new things. So it's been extremely helpful. It's about the same amount of time per week, but it's a different kind of time. And it's also very flexible. Sometimes, if we can't make Zoom, we'll just check in on the phone. We'll walk and talk, but it's an anchor and a rhythm in a healthy way that holds us steady. So I think in a virtual
Love that.
context with your workforce, you've got to try some different ways to stay
Hmm.
connected
Hmm.
and then get feedback like, is this working well?
Yeah, I love that. That is a really great tip. And everybody needs a different rhythm, and we just need to be open to that,
Well,
right?
yeah, and yes, and I'm reminded of something else. I did a session. This was for a much larger company. So it's not a small enterprise. This company had about 30,000 employees globally, but
Uy,
I know, they did this kind of cool thing, which is that one day a year, they pick a topic and then they do workshops globally everywhere on this topic. So the topic was connection, which is, my shtick. So I was involved in doing a series of workshops and they were all virtual because I was here in the US and they were all over the world. And in one of the workshops, which is the one that had the highest percentage of remote workers, because they have a huge percentage of their workforce that is remote. But this particular workshop, there were about 200 people on, and every single one of them was actually a remote worker. And it was actually sort of sad, Christiana, because what I saw in the chat as the session unfolded was that this session that we had, which was highly engaging, they were in small groups talking to each other, was the first time they had connected in a relational way with their colleagues in more than a year. And these
we
people were
see
like,
this
thank you
too.
so much.
Mm.
This is so powerful. This is so important. But they're just starving out there because their leaders or their company has assumed that they're just coders or they're just customer support and they can just be out there executing this work day over day without getting any connection to the home team or without feeling that anybody else is doing what they're doing. It was really very, very sad. And
I can feel the heartache right here,
yes,
the loneliness and oh,
the
yeah.
lack of confidence that your life is actually meaning anything. And we offered them a connection toolkit, which I'm happy to share with your audience if anyone's
Oh, great.
interested. That they were very excited to receive. And I had several managers from that system reach back and share with me how much better they felt when they got more rigorous with scheduling human touch points in their teams. So we've got to
Beautiful,
do this.
beautiful, beautiful. Because then work can become that safe oasis, from it's not like their lives ends when work is over. They have
Right.
marital issues and kids issues and health issues and financial issues. And wouldn't it be nice if work was the best place of the day?
Yes, well, we spend more time there. If we're working
Right.
full time, we spend more time there than we do anywhere else. So we ought to thrive there. We ought to be building connectedness there and expanding our thinking. So I love what you're doing, love what we're talking about around possibilities, and also love the connection to what we see in a species, in both of our cases, horses who don't have verbal acuity and yet communicate
They don't need
extremely, they don't
that.
need it. They don't need it because they know how to connect and the primacy of connection with their herd in a way that drives them much more primally. And we, I think, sometimes have um, gotten too distant from the primacy of our needs in the
Yeah, I
world of
mean, we
work.
share the identical limbic system, and the limbic system is seeking safety, right?
Yeah.
It's the place that gets alert, stressed, above threshold, nervous system activated when it doesn't feel safe. We are
Mhm.
no different.
That's right.
So if we
That's
can
right.
create a work environment where that nervous system can whoop, go into parasympathetic rest state so that the adrenaline is being produced for the actual work to be done, not for the alertness. Oh my God, who's going to go and, is out to get me?
The hypervigilance.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly. So
Yeah.
let's wrap
Absolutely
this up
love.
with one more thing I have as something that I see quite a bit in maybe it's small, but I think no, that's actually not true. We've recently been working with a couple of much larger companies around bringing in AI and systems and
Mm,
automations, etc. And we still see a lot of, like you reminded me of this when you were talking. You're the entrepreneur, you're the visionary, you got 100 new ideas every week. When we work with the team, especially with the remote team that has to work over a certain period independently before there's a next touch point, that we make sure that we explain the vision, the strategy, the plan, and then the execution.
yeah.
When we're talking to women entrepreneurs who are really, really tired, and there's that tendency, of course, I can understand it, like just dump it all to the team. Finally, I got a team. It's not that expensive. I could afford it. I, used the hiring process. Hallelujah. I got a good one. So here,
Mm,
right? And that doesn't create a lot of safety either.
no.
So I see this over my years. I worked a lot as a fractional COO, and I was usually called in because some remote coaching company or something lost a lot of employees over and over and very, very quickly. And it was usually because the instructions weren't clean and clear enough.
Yeah. Yeah.
In the attempt to like if I have to write another email, I'm gonna go and blow a fuse. We just go here, write the emails, do this, take on this, without going, okay, this is where we want to actually go. That's the big picture. This is the strategy. This is the way we want to go. These are the steps we need to go there, and you are performing this step.
Yes. Yes. I love that insight. And it's a good connection as well, I think, around AI. And I actually just was working on a LinkedIn post about this because I was noticing with another colleague and client, she said these words to me. She said, "Why do I receive feedback so well from AI? And I don't receive it well from others." And what it got me thinking about is that, we know we have a lot of anxiety about AI in the world of work, and people are threatened it will take jobs. And yet, what we're seeing is that that's not the case, other than some tech companies that are probably using it as excuse for layoffs, which I don't expect it's going to last actually, because the AI can increase productivity, it can increase systemization, but you still need that human thoughtfulness Now, in order for humans to use their brains, they have to have context
Context.
for what good looks like,
Right.
right? And
Right.
AI cannot deliver context, right? So the
Well, with the
humans,
way we do it for companies, we build their context into the AI tool.
yes,
So then the VAs have, or the employees have the context. But
yes, which
without
is
context,
we can't do it. And when we're prompting, and this goes back to the question about the feedback, I said, well, part of why you probably receive the feedback better is you're actually prompting better than you might even be with your employees. And she goes, you're right. I don't give my employees very good prompts. I don't give them good, good
oh my God,
like
yeah, yeah,
consequence and color and cost. I mean, here's the parameters. Here's what good looks like. She said, if I was prompting my employees more like I prompt my AI partner, I would probably get better results. And I was like, you're right.
right.
You're right. So there's learning happening in this process of how we integrate the technology, the efficiency gains, the productivity gains to backfill also how we're interacting with the humans, because humans do better, much better, when we have a deeper feeling of what good looks like. Now, I would add one last thing to that, Christiana, which is that what I see happen in a lot of companies, and you've been in big jobs, you've seen this, is that we dumb down what you're talking about around context as communication. And so what happens is we do, oh, you okay? Okay. We do, there we go. We do all this one-way communication, and we started using language instead of just saying communication, we say meaning making, which means that I am maybe communicating something, but then I'm asking you what meaning that has to you so that I can ensure that we're on the same page. Because when we have one-way communication, we don't actually get that receptive integration of like, oh, okay, now I'm getting what that looks like for me and how I can be successful in the parameters you're giving. So meaning making really helps us ensure that context is received.
Yeah, oh, that's I'm glad we talked about this. While you were talking also is when we help companies with the contextualizing, so we go in small or little, it's a different package, and we pull out all their business information out them, from the marketing team, et cetera, vision, values, org chart, and we put it into the AI. Like until very recently was Claude Project, or a custom GPT. Now we see Gemini can access Google Docs, so we could just put in Google Docs, right? And now everybody, no matter where they live, can access all the context they need in order to understand how their project fits into this. But the big piece that I was thinking as you were talking about this, we don't just put information in, we also prompt the tool to ask all the question it needs to we prompt the tool to ask all the question it needs be until it has clarity. And that's what
Yes.
we don't ask necessarily of other people.
Yes, I love that. I love that because you're sticking with it long enough to circle on the meaning that matches for both of us.
Right, right.
So
Oh,
how powerful that is for people to generate the solutions that they need. I love it.
I know you have to hop off. Do you have 1 minute to just let us know where we can find more about your meaning making? I mean, like God, anybody needs to come to see you, Mo, and build a company that they can be so proud of.
Oh, no worries. I'm sorry I have to dash, but what a lovely conversation. We could talk forever about this.
We'll
Um,
connect again, I'm
so
sure.
I know. So the best place that people could find me would be on LinkedIn, usually. I'd love to have any of your listeners introduce themselves to me there. Also, my website is momentum.com, and we have some new things in the work. We publish a twice weekly newsletter, which is the best place to get on if you want to hear about the new things. We're launching kind of a low cost membership community in 2026 for people to get access to really high powered tools for leadership, team, and culture, no matter what size your entity is. So, love to be connected to your folks. And thank you for having me on the show.
Thank you, Mo. Stay on for a second, but I want to just thank you. And oh my God, fantastic. We will publish all of this information for our listeners.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.